Hello. For our psalm today, we are going to be looking at Psalm 127. And Psalm 127, verse 1 is really one of my favorite passages in the Bible. But we're going to give the whole psalm a read. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves. Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They will not be put to shame when they contend with their opponents in court. Psalm 127 is really a psalm that is all about our work. It's how we go about our work and the dignity, really, of the work of our hands. But Psalm 127 really tries to find its way between kind of the two polar opposites in which we often hold our work. One way in which we hold our work, which is predominant in our culture, is that our work is all about us. It is all about our effort. It is all about what we can do to kind of control and manage creation and other people. It's about creating kind of our own kingdom through our own effort. And we see this also in the church. Eugene Peterson begins his chapter on this psalm with these words. He says, Psalm 127 shows both the right way and the wrong way to work. It posts a warning and provides an example to guide Christians in work that is done to the glory of God. Effort, even if the effort is religious, and perhaps especially when the effort is religious, does not in itself justify anything. On the one side of our work, we have kind of all of our effort and everything we think we need to do good work. On the other side of the spectrum, of course, are those who maybe take this psalm literally and just say, well, if God has to build the house, then I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to kind of sit back and, God is going to do it. God's going to take care of everything. So therefore, I have to really do nothing. But Psalm 127 tries to find its way to slalom between these two posts and making two very important points about our work. And the first is that our work is good. And our work is good because we worship and follow a God who works. Eugene Peterson writes, we live in a universe and in a history where God is working. Before anything else, work is an activity of God. The curse of some people's lives is not work as such, but senseless work, vain work, futile work, work that takes place apart from God, work that ignores the if. If the Lord does not build the house, the laborers labor in vain. Christian discipleship, by orientating us in God's work and setting us in the mainstream of what God is already doing, frees us from the compulsiveness of work. The foundational truth is that work is good. If God does it, it must be good. Work has dignity. Therefore, there can be nothing degrading about work if God works. Work has purpose. There can be nothing futile about work if God works. What we see in Scripture over and over again is that we worship a God who is always working first. He works first in creation. He works first in coming to us with his covenant promise, and he works first through Christ coming to us with his love and mercy. And so the second thing then that this psalm does is it calls us into a better relationship with our work. To see that our work is not something we are simply doing on our own, but our work is always a participation in God's work. Our work, the things that we do, whether we go off to a place of work or whether we are in our homes raising our children or whether we are living life with purpose in retirement, all of these things are always a participation in what God is already doing. And the example then that the psalm really gives of this good work, that work is good and that work is purposeful and has dignity when we're participating in what God is already doing all around us in all the different spheres of occupation and vocation out there. The example that the psalm gives then is that of having children. That within having children, we know that this is all God's miraculous work of life. But he invites us into the incredible kind of pleasurable effort of first conceiving children and then raising them. Again, Peterson writes about this example. He says, the example of having children couldn't have been better chosen by the psalmist. What do we do when we get sons and daughters? Well, very little. The entire miracle of procreation and reproduction requires our participation, but hardly in the forms of what we would call work. We do not make these marvelous creatures that walk and talk and grow among us, but we participate in an act of love that was provided for us through the structure of God's creation. If you really think about it, it is God who is working to extend his creation. It is God who performs this miracle of life. Our effort is needed, but it's always needed in participation with God. And this is how the scripture tells us, how the scripture wants us to view our work. Again, for it makes very little difference how much money Christians carry in their wallets or purses. But what does make a difference is personal relationships that we create and we develop through our life and through our work. And such work can be done within the structures of any job, career, or profession. All Christians do the jobs and tasks assigned to them in what the world calls work. We learn to pay attention to and practice what God is doing in love and justice, in helping, in healing, in liberating, and in cheering. Psalm 127 insists on a perspective in which our effort is at the periphery and God's work is at the center. Let us all see our work, whether in the workplace or whether at home with our children or in purposeful living in retirement, as God's work of us coming from the periphery and participating with him in what he is already doing.